My best friend seized my arm at my engagement party and whispered, "Why didn't you tell me you cheated on your fiancé?" I laughed right in his face, not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. I thought he had to be joking. Nathaniel and I had been best friends since freshman year of college, and he knew me better than anyone except my fiancée, Atoria. He knew I would never do something like that. But Nathaniel wasn't laughing. Can you imagine standing at your own engagement party, surrounded by everyone you love, only to have your entire world explode because of a malicious, calculated lie? Nothing could have prepared me for the moment I realized the woman I called family was systematically tearing my life apart, piece by agonizing piece. His grip on my arm tightened, his eyes practically drilling into my face, searching for a lie I didn't have. "Grayson, I'm serious," Nathaniel whispered, his voice low enough that the 60 or so guests around us couldn't possibly hear. "Multiple people told me you've been hooking up with some girl from your office for weeks." My blood ran cold. I snatched my arm back, my gaze sweeping across my own backyard. String lights twinkled overhead. Our 3-tier cake, proudly displaying Grayson and Atoria forever in silver frosting, sat on the center table. This was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Atoria and I, we'd been together for incredible years. I proposed 6 months ago on the very beach where we had our first date. She cried. I cried. Her dad, a man I genuinely respected, shook my hand and told me to take care of his little girl. Everything had been absolutely perfect, until 30 seconds ago, when my best friend decided to accuse me of utterly destroying it all. "Who told you that?" I heard the sharp, dangerous edge in my own voice, because whoever it was, they're lying. Nathaniel ran a hand through his hair, looking so uncomfortable, like he desperately didn't want to be having this conversation, but felt like he had to. "I don't know, man. I heard it from Atoria's cousin, Melissa, first. Then her aunt said something about it to my girlfriend. And then some guy I don't even know came up to me 10 minutes ago and asked if I knew about your situation. He actually made air quotes. Everyone's talking about it, Grayson. They're saying you were spotted at some bar downtown with a woman 3 different times last month, holding hands, leaving together." My chest clenched so tight it hurt to breathe. 3 different times last month. I knew exactly which nights he was talking about, because last month I was pulling late nights with Tina on a surprise anniversary gift for Atoria. Tina, a jewelry designer I'd hired to help me create a custom necklace. The only time we could meet was after hours, at this little bar near her studio. I did tell Atoria I was working late, which was true, just not at my actual office. "Nate, that's insane," I practically pleaded, grabbing his shoulder, forcing him to look me in the eye. "I haven't cheated on anyone. I don't even look at other women. You know that. You've literally made fun of me for years because I won't even go to strip clubs for bachelor parties." He wanted to believe me. I saw it in his eyes. But something was making him doubt, and that something was standing about 20 feet away, watching us, a glass of champagne in her hand. Atoria's mother, Holly. I never got along with her. Not from the very first dinner I had at their house. She always made passive-aggressive comments about my job not being prestigious enough, my family not being connected enough, my apartment not being big enough for her daughter. And she was smiling at me now across the yard. Not a warm smile. This was the cold, calculating smile of someone who had been waiting for this exact moment. Where did Melissa hear this? I asked Nathaniel, my eyes still locked on Holly. She said she heard it from her mom. And her mom is Holly's sister. Nathaniel's eyebrows pulled together in confusion. And then it clicked. Oh, hell no. Holly had been spreading this lie through her own family first, poisoning the well before the party even started, making sure everyone walked in tonight already believing I was a cheater, so that by the time Atoria found out, she would have 50 witnesses telling her it was true. I started walking toward Holly. I wasn't going to let her do this, but I only made it 3 steps before I saw my fiancé coming out of the house. Atoria's face was wet mascara streaking down her cheeks, like black tears. Her eyes were red and swollen. She was looking around the yard, desperately searching for someone. When her gaze landed on me, her whole body seemed to collapse from the inside. I could literally see the moment her hope died. "Atoria!" I started, moving toward her, but she held up a trembling hand to stop me. "Is it true?" Her voice cracked on that last word. Her father had cheated on her mother when Atoria was 12. She found the text herself, on his phone, when she was looking for a game to play. It destroyed her parents' marriage, and it destroyed something in her, too. She told me on our third date that she could forgive almost anything except cheating. That was the one thing she could never come back from. And now she was standing in front of me, her makeup ruined, her heart breaking. And I could feel every single person at this party watching us. "No," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "I have never cheated on you. I have never touched another woman. Whoever told you this is lying, and I can prove it." Her mother, Holly, appeared at her side like she had been waiting for this exact moment. She put her arm around Atoria, pulled her close, and looked at me with manufactured concern. "Maybe we should take this inside, sweetheart," Holly said softly. "You don't need to do this in front of everyone." But Atoria didn't move. She just stood there, looking at me with those broken eyes. And I realized that proving my innocence wasn't going to be simple. Holly had spent weeks building this trap. She had witnesses and stories and specific details about dates and locations. All I had was my word. And right now, with mascara running down my fiancé's face and 60 people staring at me like I was already guilty, my word wasn't worth anything. Not with Holly standing there with that satisfied smile, like she had been waiting years for this moment. But I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to let her turn my own engagement party into my public execution without a fight. If she had evidence, then I wanted to see it. I wanted everyone to see it, because whatever she had couldn't be real. And I was about to make her prove every word. "If you have proof," I said, stepping toward Holly, "then show everyone right now. Let's see what you've got." I wasn't going to stand there and let her whisper accusations without backing them up. If she wanted to destroy me, she was going to have to do it in the open, where everyone could see exactly what kind of evidence she was working with. Holly's smile didn't waver. If anything, it got wider, like she had been waiting for someone to ask that exact question. She reached into her purse, slowly, dramatically, and pulled out an envelope. The backyard went quiet. 60 people watched her fingers slide under the seal, like this was some kind of performance she had rehearsed 100 times. "I didn't want to do this tonight," she said, her voice carrying across the whole yard. "I wanted to protect my daughter from the embarrassment, but since Grayson wants everyone to see the truth, then let's show them the truth." She pulled out a stack of photographs, actual printed photographs, like she had gone to a drugstore and made copies specifically for this moment. She handed the first one to Atoria's aunt, who gasped so loud I heard it from 15 feet away. Then she passed it to the next person and the next. I watched the photos spread through the crowd like poison. Every face that saw them turned toward me with the same expression: disgust, disappointment, betrayal. Like they had already decided I was guilty before I even saw what was in those pictures. "What is that?" I demanded, moving toward Atoria's cousin to grab one, but she pulled it away from me like I was contagious. "Don't touch me," she spat, the venom in her voice making me instinctively step back. Holly walked toward me, holding the last photo in her hand. She was enjoying this. I could see it in the way she moved, slow and deliberate, like a cat playing with something it was about to kill. 3 weeks ago," she said. "Downtown. That little wine bar near your job. You know the one, don't you, Grayson?" She held up the photo so I could finally see it, and everything inside me went cold. It was me, sitting at a small table in the corner of the bar with Tina. Our heads were close together because we had been looking at jewelry designs on her tablet. Her hand was resting on my arm because she had been pointing at different stone settings, asking which one Atoria would like better. We were both smiling because we had finally settled on the perfect design after weeks of going back and forth. Out of context, it looked exactly like what Holly wanted it to look like. Two people who were way more than friends. "Her name is Tina," Holly announced to the crowd, saying the name like it was something dirty. "She works at some jewelry studio downtown. Very pretty, very young, and very close with my daughter's fiancé." She flipped to the next photo. Same bar, different night. Tina and I sitting in the same corner booth. This time her laptop was open between us, but you couldn't see the screen in the photo. All you could see was us leaning toward each other, laughing at something. "I hired someone to follow him," Holly said, and she wasn't even pretending to be sad anymore. Her voice was triumphant. A mother knows when something is wrong. I could feel it, so I had him watched. And my investigator confirmed they've been meeting secretly for months. Always at night, always at the same bar, always sitting close and touching and whispering like they don't have a care in the world. The crowd was murmuring now. I could hear fragments of conversations all around me. "I can't believe it. Poor Atoria. He seems so nice. I always thought something was off about him." They had already made up their minds. Holly had given them a story with pictures and evidence, and all I had was my word. "That's not what this is," I yelled, turning to face as many people as I could. "Tina is a jewelry designer. I hired her to make a custom necklace for Atoria." Those meetings were about the design, about picking the right stones and the right chain and making something perfect for the woman I love. That's it. That's all it ever was. Holly laughed, a cold, dismissive laugh, like I had just told her the funniest joke she'd ever heard. "A necklace," she repeated mockingly. "You expect us to believe you were meeting secretly with a beautiful woman for months to design a necklace? Why wouldn't you just go to a regular jewelry store like a normal person? Why all the secrecy? Why the late nights? Why that specific bar over and over again?" "Because it was supposed to be a surprise," I said, and I could hear how desperate I sounded. "Atoria mentioned once that she wanted something custom, something one of a kind that nobody else would have. Tina specializes in that kind of work, and the only time she could meet was after her studio closed. I was trying to do something special for our anniversary." Nobody was buying it. I could see it in their faces. The whispers had stopped, and now everyone was just staring at me, waiting for me to crack, waiting for me to admit what they already believed was true. I pulled out my phone, a sliver of hope sparking. I knew there was one person who could end this right now. Tina. She had every email we ever exchanged, every receipt for the materials I paid for, every sketch and design revision we went through together. If she could just explain what we had been working on, then this whole nightmare would be over in 5 minutes. I started scrolling through my contacts, and Holly's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Oh, look everyone," she said, sounding almost delighted. "He's calling her right now, in front of all of us, in front of his fiancée." Everyone's jaws practically dropped. I froze, my phone in my hand, suddenly aware of how this looked. "That's right, Grayson," Holly continued, walking toward me slowly. "Call your mistress. Ask her to come save you. I'm sure she has a whole folder of fake receipts and backdated emails ready to go. That's what women like her do, isn't it? They help men like you cover their tracks." I looked at Atoria, and her face was crumbling. Whatever small hope she had been holding on to was dying right there in front of me. "I'm calling her because she can prove I'm telling the truth," I said, but even I could hear how weak it sounded. "She has evidence, real evidence, not photos taken out of context, but actual documentation of the work we've been doing together." "The work?" Holly repeated, putting air quotes around it. "Is that what you call it? The work you've been doing together late at night in dark bars when my daughter sits home alone, wondering why you're never around." She turned to Atoria, and her whole demeanor changed. Suddenly, she was the concerned mother again, the protective parent who only wanted what was best for her child. "Sweetheart, you don't have to watch this. You don't have to stand here while he calls that woman and begs her to lie for him. Let me take you home. Let me take care of you." Atoria looked at me. Her mascara was ruined, her eyes were swollen, and she looked so broken that it physically hurt to see her like that. "Is she telling the truth?" Atoria asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Were you really just making a necklace? Or is there something else you need to tell me?" "There's nothing else," I said, taking a step toward her. "I swear to you, Atoria, on my life, on everything we've built together, I have never touched another woman. I have never even thought about another woman. I love you, only you. This is all a misunderstanding, and I can prove it if you just give me a chance." Atoria stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. I could see her wanting to believe me, wanting to trust the man she had agreed to marry. But Holly was right there, whispering in her ear, and her family was all around her, looking at me like I was the enemy. "I need space," Atoria said finally. "I can't do this right now. I can't think with everyone watching and yelling and showing me pictures." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I'm going to my mom's house. I need time to figure out what I believe." "Atoria, please," I said, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. "Don't," she said, and that one word hurt more than everything else combined. "Just don't. I'll call you when I'm ready to talk." Atoria left with her mother, and I stood there in that empty backyard, surrounded by knocked-over chairs and half-eaten cake. She said she needed space, but I knew what that really meant. Holly had her now. Every minute Atoria spent in that house was another minute Holly could twist the knife deeper. I couldn't just wait around, hoping she would answer my calls. I needed proof she couldn't deny, and I knew exactly where to find it. I drove to Tina's studio so fast, I'm surprised I didn't get pulled over. The whole way there, I kept replaying the party in my head. The photos, Holly's smug face, Atoria crying and asking if it was true. The way she left with her mother instead of staying to hear me out. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, and I had to keep telling myself to breathe. Tina's studio was in an old brick building downtown, a converted warehouse. I'd been there maybe 6 or 7 times over the past 4 months, working on the design together. Every visit had felt exciting, secret, special. I was creating something beautiful for the woman I loved, and nobody knew about it. Now, that secrecy was destroying everything. I parked crooked and practically ran to the entrance. Tina buzzed me up without asking questions. When I got to her door, she was already standing there, worry etched all over her face. "Grayson, what's wrong? It's almost midnight." I pushed past her into the studio, trying to figure out where to start. Her workspace was exactly how I remembered it. Sketches pinned to the walls, tools laid out on velvet cloths, little jars of gemstones organized by color and size. And there, on her workbench under a bright lamp, sat the necklace. Half finished, but already so beautiful. "Someone took photos of us," I managed to say, my voice rough, "at that wine bar 3 weeks ago when we were going over the final design. They gave the photos to my fiancé's mother, and she showed them to everyone at our engagement party tonight. She told them I was cheating on Atoria with you." Tina's hand went to her mouth. "Oh my God, Grayson, I'm so sorry. This is awful. I need proof that we were working on this," I said, pointing at the necklace. "I need something that shows I hired you months ago. Something with dates. Something that proves this whole thing was for Atoria." Tina nodded, her eyes wide, and immediately went to her desk. She started pulling open drawers, shuffling through folders. "I have everything. Every email you sent me. Every receipt for every payment. The original sketches with dates on them." She pulled out a thick folder and handed it to me. "It's all here. I keep records of everything for tax purposes." I opened the folder, my hands trembling, and started flipping through the pages. There were printouts of our email chain going back 4 months. The first message was me reaching out, asking if she did custom work. The second was her response with pricing and timeline estimates. Then dozens more as we went back and forth on the design. Every single one had a timestamp. Every single one proved that our relationship was purely professional. These are dated 2 months before Holly even started spreading rumors, I said, my voice thick with emotion. My hands were still shaking, but now it was from relief instead of panic. This proves I was telling the truth. Tina pulled out another stack of papers. Here are the receipts for your deposits. 3 payments over 4 months. Your credit card number is on all of them. And here are the receipts for the materials I ordered. The gold, the sapphires, the chain. She handed them to me, one by one. Anyone who looks at this will see exactly what was happening. You were commissioning a piece of jewelry. That's it. That's all this ever was. I looked at the receipts and felt tears building behind my eyes. This was real. This was proof. This was everything I needed to clear my name. Then I looked at the necklace sitting on her workbench, and reality hit me like a truck. It's not finished, I said quietly. Tina followed my gaze. No, I still have about a week of work left. The setting for the main sapphire isn't done yet, and I haven't attached the chain. Why? I walked over to the bench and looked down at the piece. Even half finished, it was stunning. A delicate gold wave that would rest just below Atoria's collarbone. 3 small sapphires already set into the curve of the wave, catching the light and throwing tiny blue sparkles onto the velvet beneath it. The color matched Atoria's eyes perfectly. I had spent 2 hours at this bench with Tina, comparing different stones until we found exactly the right shade. Because Atoria needs to see this, I said. Not just the receipts, not just the emails. She needs to see what I was making for her. She needs to hold it in her hands and understand what all those meetings were actually about. Tina was quiet for a moment. You want to show her an unfinished necklace? I want to show her the truth. I want her to see the sapphires I picked out because they match her eyes. I want her to see the wave design I chose because our first date was at the beach. I want her to see the engraving spot on the back where you're going to put the date we met. My voice cracked on the last word. I want her to understand that while her mother was following me around, looking for evidence of betrayal, I was actually planning the most romantic gift I've ever given anyone. Tina walked over and put her hand on my shoulder. Then take it. Take everything. The necklace, the folder, all of it. Show her what you've been doing for the past 4 months. Are you sure? It's not done. It doesn't need to be done for her to see what it is. The sapphires are set. The wave is shaped. Anyone who looks at this will know exactly what it's going to be when it's finished. She carefully lifted the necklace and placed it in a small velvet box. Go get your girl back, Grayson. And when this is all over, bring her here so I can finish this properly and you can give it to her the way you planned. I took the box and the folder, thanking her about 100 times. Then I ran back down to my car and pulled out my phone. I had to get this to Atoria. I had to show her everything before Holly had any more time to poison her against me. I called her number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I sent a text saying I had proof and I needed her to look at it. No response. I called a 3rd time. This time it didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail, like the phone had been turned off, or like someone had blocked my number. I sat in my car outside Tina's studio, holding a velvet box and a folder full of evidence, with no way to get any of it to the person who needed to see it most. Atoria was at Holly's house. Holly was in her ear, and I was completely shut out. I had the necklace. I had the receipts. I had Tina ready to back me up. But Atoria was locked inside Holly's house and wouldn't answer a single call. Holly was smart. She knew if Atoria heard my side, she might start doubting. So she kept her daughter close and kept me blocked out completely. I didn't know yet just how far Holly was willing to go to keep us apart. But I was about to find out. I called 11 times that first night. Every single one went straight to voicemail. I sent texts telling her about Tina, the necklace, telling her I had proof that would clear my name if she would just look at it. But I got nothing. No response. No read receipts. Just silence from the woman I was supposed to marry in 6 weeks. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Holly's smug face at the party. Saw Atoria's mascara running down her cheeks. Saw all those people looking at me like I was garbage. Around 3 a.m, I drove to Holly's house and sat outside in my car like some kind of stalker. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains on the second floor, Atoria's old bedroom. She was up there right now, listening to her mother tell her what a monster I was. I thought about walking up to the door and pounding on it until someone answered. But I knew how that would go. Holly would call the police. She would tell Atoria I was unhinged and dangerous. She would use my desperation as more evidence that I was guilty of something. So I just sat there watching shadows until the sun came up. Then I drove home and waited some more. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 9 o'clock. I grabbed it so fast, I nearly dropped it, hoping it was Atoria finally calling me back. It wasn't. It was the florist we had booked for the wedding. "I'm calling to confirm the cancellation," she said, her voice all business. "We received a call last night from a Mrs. Webster saying the wedding has been called off. I just need verbal confirmation from you or your fiancé before I can process the refund." My whole body went cold. I didn't cancel anything. The mother of the bride said that the wedding was no longer happening. She was quite insistent. I hung up and immediately called the caterer. Same story. Someone named Mrs. Webster had called late last night to cancel everything. Then I called the venue. Cancelled. The photographer. Cancelled. The DJ. Cancelled. The cake. Cancelled. The officiant. Cancelled. Holly had spent the entire night destroying our wedding, piece by agonizing piece. While I was sitting outside her house watching shadows, she was inside making phone calls, taking apart everything Atoria and I had spent months building together. I called each vendor back and begged them to put the cancellations on hold, that there had been a misunderstanding, and I would even pay extra if they would just wait for confirmation from Atoria herself before processing anything. Some of them agreed. Most of them sounded doubtful, like they had already decided this wedding was never going to happen. After the last call, I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, trying to figure out my next move. I needed to talk to Atoria, and I needed her to know what her mother was doing behind her back. But she wasn't answering my calls, she wasn't responding to my texts, and I had no idea how to reach her. So, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I called Holly directly. She answered on the first ring, like she had been waiting for it. "Grayson," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I wondered how long it would take you to call me." "You canceled our wedding," I said, trying so hard to keep my voice steady. "You called every single vendor last night and told them to cancel everything." "I was helping my daughter," Holly replied, her voice so calm, so reasonable, like she hadn't just blown up my entire life. She was too upset to make the calls herself. She asked me to handle it. "Atoria asked you to cancel our wedding without even talking to me first." "She doesn't want to talk to you. She's seen the evidence. She knows what you did. The wedding is over, Grayson. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. The wedding isn't over until Atoria tells me it's over. Not you. Her." Holly laughed softly. "My daughter tells me everything. Right now. She's upstairs sleeping because she cried herself to exhaustion last night. Because of you. Because of what you did to her. Do you have any idea what it's like to watch your child's heart break? To hold her while she sobs and asks why the man she loved would betray her like this?" "I didn't betray anyone. I have proof, Holly. Receipts and emails, and the actual necklace I was making for her. If you would just let me show her the truth instead of keeping her locked up like a prisoner, maybe she could make her own decision." "She's not a prisoner. She's protected. There's a difference." Holly's voice hardened slightly. "And I don't care about your receipts or your emails or whatever story you cooked up with that woman. My daughter deserves better than you. She always has. And now she finally sees it, too. Let me talk to her. No. Holly, I swear to God, if you don't let me talk to my fiancé right now, I will drive over there and bang on your door until someone calls the police. Go ahead. I'll tell them you've been harassing us. I'll show them the 11 missed calls from last night. I'll tell them how you sat outside my house at 3 in the morning, watching through the windows. She paused to let that sink in. Yes, Grayson. I saw your car. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I would just let you stalk my daughter without taking note of every single moment? My hand was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. I wasn't stalking anyone. I was trying to see the woman I love. A woman who doesn't want to see you. A woman who asked me to handle the wedding cancellations because she couldn't bear to do it herself. A woman who is finally free of whatever spell you had her under for 4 years. Holly's voice dropped lower, almost gentle, almost kind. Go home, Grayson. Move on with your life. Find some other girl to deceive. But leave my daughter alone. She's been through enough. She hung up before I could respond. I threw my phone across the room and watched it bounce off the couch cushions. Holly had won. She had Atoria isolated and brainwashed, convinced that I was the enemy. She had cancelled our wedding without anyone's permission and made it look like Atoria wanted it. She had documented me sitting outside her house like evidence for a future restraining order. I was losing everything, and I had no idea how to stop it. That afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, thinking it was spam, but something made me check anyway. It was Atoria, a text from her mom's landline. Can you talk? Call this number. My mom went to get groceries. I called so fast I hit the wrong button twice. She answered on the second ring, and my heart nearly stopped at the sound of her voice. Grayson. She sounded hollow, empty, like all the life had been drained out of her. Yeah, it's me. Are you okay? Are you hurt? What's going on over there? She was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear her breathing on the other end. Shaky, uneven, like she was trying not to cry. My mom helped me cancel the venue, she said finally. I was too upset to make the call myself, so she did it for me. Atoria, your mom canceled everything. Not just the venue. The caterer, the florist, the photographer, the DJ. She called every single vendor last night and told them the wedding was off. Silence. The caterer? Her voice sounded strange now, confused. She said she was just handling the venue because I couldn't stop crying. She didn't say anything about the caterer. She canceled all of it, every single thing we booked. I spent all morning calling them, trying to put holds on the cancellations before they processed the refunds. More silence. I could hear Atoria's breathing getting faster. The florist, too. The one with the peonies you wanted? Gone. And the photographer, the one we waited 8 months to book because she was so popular? Your mom told her the wedding was off. Atoria made a sound that was somewhere between a gasp and a sob. I didn't ask her to do that. I didn't ask her to cancel anything except the venue, and even that I wasn't sure about. I just couldn't stop crying, and she said she would take care of it, and I didn't think she meant everything. She's trying to make sure there's nothing left, I said. She's trying to burn it all down before you have a chance to change your mind. I don't know what's real anymore. Atoria's voice cracked, and I could hear her crying now. Quiet tears that she was trying to hide. She showed me those photos, and they looked so bad, Grayson. You were so close to that woman. You were smiling at her. And then everyone at the party kept telling me they knew, that they had heard rumors for weeks. How am I supposed to know what to believe? Believe me, I said, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles hurt. Believe the man who has loved you for 4 years. Believe the man who proposed to you on the beach where we had our first date. I have proof, Atoria. Real proof. Receipts and emails and the actual necklace I was making for you. If you would just look at it, you would see that everything your mother told you is a lie. She was quiet for so long I thought she had hung up. Then her voice came through, small and tired. My family is having dinner on Sunday. Everyone will be there. My mom and my aunts and my cousins. All the people who were at the party. A beat. Okay, if you want to show me your proof, you can come to dinner and show everyone. If what you're saying is true, then it should be easy to convince them, right? My stomach twisted. Walking into Holly's house, surrounded by people who already hated me, sounded like a trap. But it was also the first chance Atoria had given me to defend myself. I'll be there, I said. What time? 6 o'clock. But Grayson. She paused, and I could hear her taking a shaky breath. They all believe my mother. Every single one of them. If you come to that dinner, you're going to be standing alone against my entire family. Are you sure you want to do that? I would stand alone against the entire world if it meant getting you back. She made a small sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. Sunday at 6. Don't be late. She hung up, and I sat there, holding the phone against my chest like it was something precious. I had one chance, one dinner, one opportunity to prove my innocence in front of everyone who thought I was guilty. Holly thought she had me trapped. She thought surrounding me with her allies would make me crumble. But she forgot that I had something she didn't, the truth. And I was going to shove it down her throat in front of every single person she had turned against me. Sunday came faster than I expected and slower than I could stand. I spent the whole morning going over everything. The folder of receipts, the email printouts, the velvet box with the necklace inside. I must have checked that box 50 times to make sure the necklace was still there, like it might disappear if I looked away for too long. I got to Holly's house at exactly 6 o'clock. Not a minute early, not a minute late. I wanted her to know I wasn't scared, that I wasn't going to show up desperate and sweating like she probably expected. Her house was one of those big colonial things with white columns and a circular driveway. The kind of house that was designed to make people feel small when they walked up to it. I had been here dozens of times over the past 4 years, but it never felt like this before, like I was walking into enemy territory with a target on my back. The door opened before I could knock. Holly stood there in a black dress, like she was attending a funeral. My funeral, probably. She looked at me with this expression of tired sadness that was so fake I wanted to laugh in her face. "Grayson," she said, her voice soft, gentle, like she was talking to a sick animal. "I'm glad you decided to come. Atoria will appreciate that you're willing to face this like a man." I didn't respond. I just walked past her into the house and followed the sound of voices coming from the dining room. The whole family was already there. Atoria's aunts and uncles and cousins, maybe 15 people total, all seated around a long table with fancy china and cloth napkins. Every single one of them looked up when I walked in, and every single face showed the same thing: disgust, disappointment, judgment, like they had already decided I was guilty, and this dinner was just a formality before they threw me out. Atoria was sitting at the far end of the table, next to an empty chair that I assumed was meant for Holly. She looked tired, pale, like she hadn't slept in days. When our eyes met, she looked away so fast it felt like a slap. She couldn't even look at me. Holly glided past me and took her seat next to Atoria. She reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand in this supportive, motherly gesture that made my skin crawl. "Everyone," Holly said, her voice carrying across the room, "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I know this has been a difficult week for our family, but I think it's important that we face this together, that we support Atoria through this painful time." She dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, even though I didn't see any actual tears. When I first discovered what Grayson was doing, I didn't want to believe it. I wanted to think the best of him for Atoria's sake, but the evidence was undeniable. She reached into her purse and pulled out the same envelope from the engagement party, the photographs. She spread them across the table so everyone could see. Me and Tina at the wine bar, our heads close together, her hand on my arm, both of us smiling. 3 different occasions, Holly said, and her voice cracked like she was barely holding it together. 3 different nights when he was supposed to be working late. Instead, he was meeting this woman in secret, laughing with her, touching her, while my daughter sat home alone, trusting him completely. The aunts shook their heads. One of the cousins muttered something under her breath that sounded like disgusting. Atoria's uncle crossed his arms and stared at me like he was imagining all the ways he could hurt me if we were alone. I stood at the edge of the room, watching this performance and waiting for my turn. Holly wasn't done yet. She pulled out more papers from her envelope. I hired a private investigator, she continued, because a mother knows when something is wrong, and my investigator confirmed that Grayson had been meeting this woman for months, always at the same bar, always late at night, always in secret. She looked at me with manufactured pity. I wanted to give you a chance to explain yourself, Grayson. That's why I invited you here tonight. But I want you to know that whatever you say won't change what we've all seen with our own eyes. The room was silent. Everyone was looking at me now, waiting for me to crumble, to apologize, to admit what they already believed was true. I could feel their judgment pressing against me from every direction. But I didn't crumble. I didn't apologize. Instead, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The room got even quieter somehow. Holly's expression flickered for just a second. Confusion, uncertainty, like she had prepared for every possible response except this one. "What is that?" Atoria's aunt asked. I didn't answer her. I walked slowly toward the table and set the velvet box down right in the center, where everyone could see it. Then I opened it. The necklace caught the light from the chandelier overhead and threw tiny blue sparkles across the white tablecloth. A delicate gold wave with 3 sapphires set into the curve. Even unfinished, it was stunning. Even incomplete, it was obviously something special, something that took time and thought and care to create. "This is what I was doing," I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was pounding. "This is what those meetings were about." I hired a jewelry designer named Tina to create a custom necklace for Atoria. The wave design is because our first date was at the beach. The sapphires are because they match her eyes. There's an engraving spot on the back where the date we met was going to go. I looked at Atoria, and she was staring at the necklace with her lips parted, like she couldn't quite process what she was seeing. "It was supposed to be a surprise for our anniversary," I continued. "I wanted to give her something one of a kind, something nobody else in the world would have, something that showed how much she meant to me." I reached into my other pocket and pulled out the folder. Then I spread the contents across the table next to the photos Holly had laid out. Receipts, email printouts, work orders, design sketches with dates written in the corners. These are the receipts for every payment I made to Tina over the past 4 months. My credit card number is on all of them. These are the emails we exchanged going back to when I first reached out to her about the project. Every single one is time-stamped. I pointed at the design sketches. These show the evolution of the necklace, from the first rough concept to the final design. You can see the dates in the corners. The earliest one is from 4 months ago, 2 months before Holly claims she started getting suspicious. The room was completely silent now. The aunts were looking at the receipts with confused expressions. The uncle had uncrossed his arms. Atoria's cousin picked up one of the email printouts and started reading it with her eyebrows pulled together. Holly's face had gone pale. She was staring at the evidence spread across her fancy tablecloth like it was a bomb that had just landed in the middle of her carefully constructed lie. "That doesn't prove anything," she said, her voice higher than before, less steady. "He probably made all of that after he got caught. He had days to put together fake receipts and backdate emails. That woman is probably helping him cover his tracks." I looked at her, and I could see the panic underneath her composure. She knew she was losing. She knew her story was falling apart right in front of everyone she had spent weeks convincing. "The receipts have my credit card transactions on them," I said calmly. Anyone can call the credit card company and verify the dates. The emails are from my actual account, which you can subpoena if you want to check the metadata. And the design sketches have Tina's handwriting and her studio stamp with the date. I picked up one of the sketches and held it up so everyone could see. This is from 4 months ago, before Holly hired her investigator, before she started spreading rumors, before any of this started. I set the sketch down and looked around the table at all the faces that had been judging me since I walked in. I wasn't cheating on Atoria. I was making her a gift. The only reason we met that bar was because it was near Tina's studio and she could only meet after hours. The only reason I kept it secret was because I wanted to surprise the woman I love. My voice cracked on that last part, and I let it. I was done being strong. I was done performing. I just wanted Atoria to see the truth. I have loved your daughter for 4 years, I said, looking directly at Holly now. I would never do anything to hurt her. But you would. You've been trying to break us up since the day we met because you decided I wasn't good enough. And when you couldn't find any real evidence against me, you manufactured some. Holly opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. For the first time since I'd known her, she didn't have a comeback ready. And the best part was that I saw Atoria's face when I opened that box. I saw the doubt flicker in her eyes for the first time in weeks. She was starting to question everything her mother told her. Holly felt it, too, because her voice got louder and her hand started shaking. The mask was slipping, and I was about to rip it off in front of everyone she had been lying to. I picked up the velvet box and walked around the table to where Atoria was sitting. She watched me approach with those tired eyes that I loved so much. Eyes that matched the sapphires I had spent 2 hours picking out with Tina because I wanted the color to be perfect. I knelt down next to her chair so we were at the same level, so she could see my face when I said what I needed to say. I started working on this 3 months ago, I said quietly, just for her, even though everyone in the room was listening. I remembered you telling me once that you wished you had jewelry that actually meant something. Not just expensive stones, but something with a story, something designed just for you. I took the necklace out of the box and held it up so she could see the details. The curve of the wave, the way the sapphires caught the light, the tiny imperfections that proved it was handmade with care instead of stamped out by a machine. The wave is for the beach where we had our first date. You were wearing that blue sundress, and you kept laughing at my bad jokes even though they weren't funny. I knew that night I was going to marry you someday. Atoria's eyes were filling with tears, but she didn't look away. She was really seeing me now, maybe for the first time since the party. The sapphires are for your eyes, I continued. I made Tina show me about 30 different stones before I found ones that matched. She probably thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. I wanted them to be exactly right. I turned the necklace over to show her the back, the smooth gold surface where the engraving was supposed to go. This is where she was going to put the date we met. October 14th, 4 years ago. The day my whole life changed because I walked into that coffee shop and you were standing in line ahead of me arguing with the barista about oat milk. Atoria let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. She remembered that day. She remembered being frustrated because they were out of her usual order and some random guy behind her had made a joke about it being a tragedy of epic proportions. That random guy was me. And now here I was, 4 years later, kneeling beside her with a necklace I had designed to tell the story of us. I wasn't cheating on you, I said, and my voice broke on the words. I was loving you. The only secret I was keeping was this. The only woman I was meeting was helping me create something beautiful for the woman I want to spend my life with. I placed the necklace in her hands and watched her fingers close around it. She held it like it was something precious, something fragile, something she was afraid might disappear if she gripped too tight. Then I stood up and turned back to the table where my evidence was still spread out next to Holly's photographs. I want everyone to look at these dates, I said, and I picked up the earliest receipt. This is from January 15th, 4 months ago. This is when I made my first payment to Tina for the design consultation. I held it up so the whole table could see. According to Holly, she started getting suspicious about my behavior in March. That's when she claimed she hired her private investigator. I set the receipt down and picked up another one. This is from February 3rd, my second payment for the materials, the gold and the sapphires. I pointed at Holly without looking at her. This was still a month before she supposedly started noticing something was wrong with me. The room was dead silent. I could feel everyone doing the math in their heads, putting the pieces together, realizing what I was about to say. Holly didn't hire an investigator because she noticed suspicious behavior, I said, and now I did look at her, looked right into her eyes so she could see that I knew, that I finally understood what she had done. She hired an investigator because she wanted to find something, anything. She went looking for evidence of an affair, and when she couldn't find one, she took innocent meetings about a necklace and twisted them into something ugly. Holly shot up from her chair, so fast it scraped against the floor. "That's ridiculous," she said, and her voice was loud now. Shrill. Nothing like the composed, grieving mother from earlier. "You're manipulating everyone with your fake receipts and your rehearsed speech. This is exactly what men like you do. You lie and you charm and you make yourself look like the victim when you're really the monster." She pointed at the photographs still spread across the table. "Those pictures don't lie. I saw them with my own eyes. You were holding that woman's hand. You were leaning close to her. You were smiling at her like she was the only person in the world." Her voice cracked, and I couldn't tell anymore if the emotion was real or fake. Maybe she couldn't tell either. My daughter deserves better than someone who sneaks around behind her back. She deserves someone who would never give her a reason to doubt. Someone worthy of her. The word worthy hung in the air like smoke. I saw several family members exchange glances. Saw Atoria's aunt frown slightly, like she had heard something that didn't quite fit. But it was Atoria who spoke next. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through everything else in the room. "Mom." Holly turned to look at her daughter. Some of the fire went out of her eyes, replaced by something softer, something almost desperate. "Yes, sweetheart. Why did you hire the investigator in January?" Holly blinked. "What?" "You told me you hired him in March when you started noticing Grayson acting strange. But his receipts are from January. February." Atoria's voice was getting steadier now, stronger. "If you hired someone to follow him before he even started meeting with Tina, then you weren't investigating suspicious behavior. You were looking for something to use against him." Holly's mouth opened and closed. She looked around the table at her sisters and her nieces and nephews. All the people she had spent weeks convincing that I was the enemy. They were all watching her now with different expressions than before. Confused, uncertain, waiting for an explanation that made sense. "I was protecting you," Holly said, and her voice sounded smaller now, less sure. A mother's instinct. "I knew something was wrong with him from the beginning. I could feel it." "Feel what?" Atoria asked. "He's been nothing but good to me for 4 years. He remembers every anniversary. He knows how I take my coffee. He held my hand through Grandma's funeral and didn't let go for 6 hours." She picked up the necklace from her lap and held it up. "He spent 3 months designing this because I mentioned once that I wanted jewelry with meaning. What exactly did your instincts tell you was wrong with that?" Holly was shaking now, actually shaking. Her hands were trembling at her sides, and her carefully composed face was starting to crack. "You don't understand," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "You're too young to understand. Men like him, they seem perfect at first. They say all the right things and they make you feel special. And then one day you wake up and realize they've been lying to you the whole time." Tears were streaming down her face now. Real tears, not the performative dabbing from earlier. "I couldn't let that happen to you. I couldn't watch you go through what I went through. I had to protect you, even if you hated me for it." Atoria stared at her mother. Something was shifting in her expression. Understanding, maybe. Or horror. This isn't about Grayson, she said slowly. This is about Dad. Holly flinched, like she had been slapped. Don't. This is about what Dad did to you. What he did to us. You've been waiting for Grayson to turn into Dad this whole time. And when he didn't, you decided to make it happen yourself. That's not true. Holly's voice was desperate now, pleading. I was trying to save you. I was trying to spare you from the pain of finding out later, when it was too late. When you had kids and a mortgage and your whole life was tangled up with his. She looked around the table at her family, at all the people who had believed her story. I wanted her to marry someone worthy, someone from a good family, someone who would never have a reason to sneak around or keep secrets. Not some nobody who works 60 hours a week and thinks a homemade necklace makes up for not being able to give her the life she deserves. The word nobody landed like a bomb. I watched Atoria's face change, watched the confusion and hurt transform into something harder, something final. A nobody, Atoria repeated. She stood up from her chair, still holding the necklace. The man who has loved me unconditionally for 4 years. The man who remembers that I like my eggs scrambled soft and my toast barely brown. The man who drove 3 hours in a snowstorm to be with me when my grandmother died because he didn't want me to be alone. That's who you're calling a nobody. Holly reached for her daughter's arm, but Atoria stepped back. Sweetheart, please. I was trying to protect you. Everything I did was because I love you. No. Atoria's voice was firm now. Certain. Everything you did was because you're scared. Because Dad broke something in you. And instead of fixing it, you tried to break my relationship, too. She looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen since before the party. Trust. Love. The certainty that I was exactly who she thought I was. Grayson has never lied to me. He has never given me a reason to doubt him. The only person who lied was you. She walked around the table and stood next to me. Then she reached down and took my hand. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong. I choose him, she said, and she was talking to her mother, but she was looking at me. I choose the man who spent 3 months designing a necklace because I mentioned once that I wanted something meaningful. I choose the man who kept receipts of everything because he knew someday he might need to prove his innocence to people determined to believe the worst. She turned back to Holly, who was standing frozen at the head of the table with tears streaming down her face. You almost took everything from me, Mom. Not Grayson. You almost made me lose the best thing that ever happened to me because you couldn't let go of what Dad did 20 years ago. The room was completely silent. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Holly stood there looking at her daughter like she was watching something precious slip through her fingers. And maybe she was. Maybe she was finally seeing the true cost of everything she had done. We got married 3 months later on the same beach where I proposed. Holly wasn't invited, but I heard she started therapy, which is probably the first honest thing she's done in years. It's crazy how one person's deep-seated issues can unravel so much, almost destroying everything good in your life. Have you ever had someone try to manipulate you or your relationships like this? I'm genuinely curious what you would have done in my place, or if you've had to fight for the truth against overwhelming odds. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.